Ladies and gentlemen, kicking off the first stop on his world tour, our new president and prophet, Russell M. Nelson! You say you want some revelation, well, here you go. It's gonna blow your freaking mind.
The number one question I've been asked in the last 24 hours is, why is the church rolling out new garment designs only for hot and humid climates? And these are the factors that no one else is talking about right now. The church recently released new styles for temple garments, a top that has an open sleeve or more closely resembles a tank top, and a shift or skirt option for bottoms. These are being tested in countries that have hot and humid climates, and some people are pointing out that, hey, it gets plenty hot in the US too, why can't we have them as well? As far as I can tell, the intention is to roll out these designs worldwide. If you're an endowed member and sign into the church's distribution website, you'll find the images of these new designs, and it says it'll be available in the US at the end of 2025. As far as why other countries get these garments first, I think the biggest reason might be that as a global church, they're trying to provide solutions where the greatest needs are. I actually think it's a sign of progress that Utah's not the first place to get something for once. Also consider that if this is a testing phase, they may want to get feedback from the target audience in a small area before a worldwide rollout. Based on what I've seen, it sounds like they're trying to solve specific issues for people in these cultures and countries, and so it makes sense to get feedback from them first. Another important consideration is that Beehive Clothing Manufacturers, the company that makes the garments, they have facilities in Utah, but their other locations are, wait for it, Brazil, Paraguay, Mexico, and the Philippines. Hot and humid climates. So for supply chain reasons alone, it may have been expedient to prioritize these areas, and anyone who tried to buy garments during COVID knows that supply chain can be a major issue with getting garments. As someone who wears skirts and dresses almost every day, I'm really excited to try these new options when they become available. But I'm also happy to be patient so that saints in other parts of the world can have quicker access to the resources to help them more practically live their covenants.
We have church doctrine and policy, we have church culture, and I feel like we have to understand the difference between the two.
In case you haven't heard, it was just announced by Church News and by other news sources that they're testing a redesign with garments that are sleeveless for both men and women, and a new slip and half slip option for women as well. Some people are really concerned about modesty and if this is something that's going to allow us to be more modest.
Garments are a symbol of the atonement of Jesus Christ. It's not necessarily we wear garments so that we can be modest.
And then we started to see this big push on social media from influencers talking about how the church shouldn't be asking us about our underwear because now we deemed garments as being our underwear.
I think the church absolutely has the right to ask about covenant keeping and about how you're choosing to keep your covenants.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Mormon temple garments are now available as a tank top. I know I don't normally dive in this quickly. I'm Alicia with Faith Unraveled. I'm so excited to get into this topic, and I can't believe how many times I have seen the words today, I never thought I would live to see the day. That day is here, my friends. This morning, the Salt Lake City Tribune announced that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does in fact have a garment option to people in certain areas with an open sleeve, as they're calling it. I'll show you a picture of it here if you're watching on video. Oh, my friends, I am just dying at this feedback. So many implications here that I want to dive into today. I want to talk about the evolution of this church. What is going on? It feels like a massive rebrand to so many, from the explicit steering away from the title Mormon to the shortening of church meetings to allowance of multiple earrings and tattoos. What it does for people who experienced life as a member of the church, particularly for those who were really, really living it the way that it was prescribed, you just kind of feel gaslit right now. That's what so many of you are telling me in the comments on Instagram. I just feel gaslit. This younger generations, pretty soon they're going to be drinking coffee and saying, you couldn't drink coffee? What are you talking about? And that's because of the way that the church handles these changes. They never address the problem. They just change the policy and they move on, and they ask you to not ask questions, do not dissent, do not make complaints, just move along. This is the Lord's church. And what I want to know is, why is God having such a hard time making decisions and keeping them? From the 2015 policy that didn't allow LGBTQ plus people's children to either be baptized or go on missions, which changed back just a few years later, to the I'm a Mormon campaign. And now we're not using the term Mormon because apparently it is offensive to God. Apparently.
Have you ever considered how faith can intersect with something as seemingly mundane as employment? It's quite a thought, isn't it? To illustrate this unique intersection, let's take a journey to Luque, Paraguay. Nestled within this vibrant city is a textile plant with a divine mission. Since 1995, this factory has been exclusively producing sacred garments for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Over the years, the plant has become more than just a manufacturing hub. It stands as a testament to the intertwining of faith and employment, and the potential they hold when working together. Recently, the plant underwent an expansion, a sign of growing faith and a thriving business. This expansion has increased employment opportunities, with the workforce set to triple from 90 to 290 dedicated workers. This unique intersection of faith and employment is not just a story of a textile plant's expansion. It's about the tangible impact on people's lives and the economy. The expansion of the textile plant is not just about bigger buildings or more machines. It's about the people and their livelihoods. This growth isn't just measured in square footage or production lines, but in the lives it touches and the communities it uplifts. Let's talk numbers. With the expansion, employment at the plant has more than tripled, leaping from 90 to an impressive 290. That's 200 extra families with a steady income, 200 individuals contributing to their community and their country. And let's not forget about exports. The plant is expected to double its output, exporting 2 million garments annually. That's not just a testament to the hard work and dedication of the workers, but also a significant contribution to Paraguay's economy. The praises from Paraguayan President Santiago Peña and First Lady Leticia Ocampos underline the importance of this expansion. They lauded the church's contribution to providing employment opportunities in the country for nearly 30 years. But it's not just about the jobs or the exports. It's about how faith can drive progress and prosperity. It's about how belief can build bridges and boost economies. The plant's expansion is a testament to the power of faith in driving economic growth and providing employment opportunities. To sum up, the story of the textile plant's expansion is a story of faith, employment, and progress. The plant's growth from 90 to 290 employees and its doubling of annual exports to 2 million garments illustrate the tangible impact of faith on employment and economic advancement. The intersection of faith and employment has not only spurred economic growth, but also fostered a vibrant community, proving that faith can inspire progress in ways that transcend the spiritual realm. The textile plant's expansion serves as a powerful reminder of how faith can inspire progress and prosperity in unexpected ways.
Do Mormons really wear magic underwear? Yes, sort of. That's a weird way to phrase it. Calling temple garments magic underwear is like calling a yarmulke a magic hat. Temple garments are a set of white underclothes, similar to a Sikh kachara, worn by Latter-day Saints who have made sacred promises called covenants in the temple. The garment, as we have it today, was likely first introduced in 1842, around the time that Joseph Smith first introduced the endowment. Similarly to how a yarmulke is worn as a sign of reverence and humility before God, the Latter-day Saints wear the garment as a sign of remembrance of the promises they made and the protection God promises them for their faith. Members are instructed to wear the garment throughout their life, but that doesn't mean they have to wear it 24/7. Many members of the church remove their garments for activities like exercise or swimming or basket making. But do garments protect people from physical harm? And could you really buy them from JCPenney in the 50s? For those answers and more, check out our Q&A at mormoner.org.
Men and women from various faiths and cultures embrace religious clothing to help express their deepest feelings and devotion to God. The nun's habit, the Jewish prayer shawl, and the monk's robes. All are expressions of the human desire to draw closer to God. Some religious clothing is worn publicly, some only in special places or for special ceremonies. Many members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints also wear religious clothing, but underneath their regular clothes. Similar to ordinary modest underclothing, it comes in two pieces and is usually referred to as the temple garment. Some people incorrectly refer to temple garments as Mormon underwear or even magic underwear, but the more respectful term is temple garments. Temple garments are worn by adult members of the church who have made solemn promises in temples to keep God's commandments and to follow Jesus Christ. They serve as a private and personal reminder of our relationship with God and our commitment to live good, honorable lives.
The garment is actually a representation of the sacred name of God. So when reading the scriptures about taking on us the name of Christ, in the temple, when we put on the garment, we are actually literally doing that. Think about garments, right? 4 sacred symbols, two of which are actually repetitions of each other, okay? Now think about the sacred name of God in Hebrew, known as the tetragrammaton, YHWH in English, right? Yahweh, okay? So it's 4 characters, but 2 of them repeat. Okay? The H is a repeated symbol, okay? So I would suggest that
the LDS Church is beginning to allow faithful members to wear sleeveless temple garments in hot climates. Never thought that I would see this happen. I have heard Mormon women joke about this for ages. As a faithful Latter-day Saint, I never believed that I would see this because I believed that God was in charge, making these policies. God doesn't change his mind. He certainly doesn't vacillate to conform to societal expectations. But just like so many other things in Mormon history, the Mormon temple garment has changed a lot since the days of its inception. Now, I'd like to, for a moment, have a juxtaposition to look at issues that are much bigger than simply what we wear in the church. Things like Black people being able to go through the temple and receive their covenants and to hold the priesthood, something that was strictly not allowed until after 1978. Or let's take an issue from today, say women being ordained with the priesthood, still strictly not allowed. Or how about gay people holding callings in the church, the priesthood, being a member in good standing and being able to get sealed in the temple. There are a lot of people in the church that are fighting for these kinds of changes. So when we see an evolution such as this, it makes me wonder what other changes could be at the forefront? And is God really running the show? Tell me what you think.
The church wants members to love and wear the garment, so they let you try on as many pairs of garments as you want, so you can figure out what size is most comfortable, what style you like, what fabrics are most comfortable for you, so that you feel confident and comfortable in this sacred clothing the rest of your life. You can go to a physical distribution center, or you can go to the church's distribution website, where you can also order pairs of garments throughout your life.
Finally, the women's dry stretch open sleeve chemise and full slip or half slip LDS garments have arrived, but only if you live in Africa. These new variations to the traditional sleeved garment can only be shipped to Africa and can only be purchased if your own country is in Africa. The church website won't allow you to enter a different country than your records indicate. The pricing on the new open sleeve tank top garments is interesting. 16 cents for the top, 23 cents for the full slip, and 15 cents for the half slip. Will these new tank top garments be available worldwide soon? Or will Latter-day Saints simply cut the sleeves off their existing garments now that the option is available? Would that be okay? Not okay? Let me know what you think.
Big news for Latter-day Saints. Now, this has not been officially confirmed by Church News yet, but some international members are seeing new garment styles in the church's online store. On the website, if I change my country to Kenya, for example, it looks like there are sleeveless options for men and women and a couple of different slip options for women. Of course, garments have changed a lot over the last 100+ years, but to be clear, these new changes are just changes in style. Garment symbolism has not changed, nor have the covenants that we make in the temple. I'm not sure when or even if the church plans on making these styles available worldwide, but I think the more options the merrier. What do you think?
So news broke yesterday that the church released a new style of garments. This article was published in the Salt Lake Tribune, and the title is, "Rejoice, LDS Women, These New Garments Will Open Up More Fashion Options." And as depicted, the new garments have no cap sleeves, or otherwise called open sleeves. The article shared that for both men and women, these garments are being tested in hot climates, such as Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, the Philippines, and some southern U.S. locations. The article also says that this new style could make it harder for others to judge who is or is not wearing garments. So Mormons can stop being judgmental on what underwear you are or are not wearing. And another thing I wanted to point out is something that an Instagrammer said. Thousands of women have complained about garment styles to the church, and many felt that their complaints fell on deaf ears. They were viewed as less righteous because garments did not work for them. Because in Mormonism, God looketh on the garments. And this can be really harmful for men and women. One interesting factor that I hear people talk about is that in 1906, Joseph F. Smith said that the garments were sacred, and that they should be unchanged and unaltered from the very pattern in which God gave them. So according to him, the garments should still look like this. Now don't get me wrong, I am thrilled at these changes. But what I don't like is that when prophets speak in the past, and today their words are disregarded, and yet we pretend like what the prophet says today will never change. Maybe we should stop putting so much weight in what the prophet says today, because it is likely going to change.
The Mormon Church just changed the garments. These are the garments that the Mormon Church has had since the 1960s or 70s that are supposed to go all the way to your knee with a little mark that is supposed to actually cover you, and a t-shirt that covers your shoulder. As a Mormon, I received this in preparation for my temple wedding during my washings and anointing. I was told that I had to keep this on throughout my entire life, night and day. In 24 years of marriage, never once did I ever sleep naked with my husband, because as soon as we had done adult stuff, you better believe I put those garments right back on. And I was hospitalized, fighting for my life from an ovarian tumor. I was so afraid that I was going to die, and I was totally freaked out because they had me just like a gown in the hospital, and I kept begging for them to let me put my garments back on because I believed that they protected me. That's what you're told. You're literally told in the temple that they will serve as a shield and a protection to you throughout your life as long as you wear them. So I had them put my garments underneath me in the bed, just lay them on the bed so that they would be touching my body. Garments go underneath your clothes. I live in the state of Arizona, so in Arizona where it is extremely hot, this would literally shape my life. There were times that it's kind of hot, but we could still do a zoo trip with the kids, but only if I'm like a tank top and shorty shorts. If I'm actually wearing my garments, then I cannot possibly go to the zoo because I'll have a heat stroke. I want you to just imagine for a minute living in the state of Arizona with the garments underneath what then has to be a long pair of shorts. You can't have any midriff showing, and what has to be a t-shirt to cover those t-shirt sleeves of your underwear. But as the church has spread into Africa, there are people now who have traditional clothing, who are members of the church, who are temple worthy, who won't or can't wear the garments because they wear dresses and they don't have t-shirt. So here's the new release. It's called an open sleeve. It's a tank top. They also have it looks like a slip. I don't have a photo of it yet, but it's a white silky tank top dress type of situation. And then there's also an independent skirt. Forever, the garments have always been like biker shorts, and originally they were pants. There has never been a skirt version. When I worked in the temple, we instructed sisters to tuck the shirt into the pants and to wear your bra over the top, because the garments and the markings were supposed to be touching your skin. I've heard that in recent years they have changed that. You can wear your bra underneath, and some people actually wear panties underneath those garment shorts. And I don't know if I have to state the obvious, but I'm just going to say it. The never-changing God changes his mind a whole fucking lot, because when I grew up in the Mormon church, I was taught that shoulders were immodest, that Heavenly Father didn't want our bare shoulders showing. He created skins for Adam and Eve from the very beginning that covered their shoulders. That's what the garments are supposed to be a dupe of Adam and Eve's coats of skins in the garden. And now all of a sudden, boom, naked shoulders everywhere. I think this just goes to show that the Mormon prophet is watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and he's decided to create some garments for the younger generation. The fact that I grew up in a religion where the men dictated and literally manufactured and then sold me the underwear that I had, pressing up against every private part on my body. It's just wild. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. I'm going to sneak back into bed.
Breaking news. October 17th. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints announces redesigned temple garments for hot, humid areas and is testing new designs for temple garments to better serve members living in hot, humid climates. Church spokesperson Doug Anderson announced that the First Presidency has authorized these changes to bless members and others who may benefit from them. This decision reflects the Church's dedication to supporting the physical and spiritual well-being of its members worldwide. While further details are not provided on these sacred matters, the Church continues to emphasize the sanctity of the temple garment as a reminder of covenants made with Jesus Christ and Heavenly Father. In a recent letter, President Russell M. Nelson and his counselors explained that by wearing the garment faithfully, members have greater access to the Savior's mercy, protection, strength, and power. Updates to Temple recommend interview questions were also shared to help members better understand the sacred privilege of wearing the garment as instructed. President Jeffrey R. Holland, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, recently taught in the Liahona magazine that the garment has served as a sacred physical reminder of covenants since the time of Adam and Eve. He said, "When we wear the garment, we carry a symbol of the Savior himself, a constant reminder of the promises we've made with him." Members are encouraged to seek personal revelation through prayer and consult with local leaders if they have questions about wearing the garment. President Holland reminds us that while we may not always have every answer, God will always help us stay true to our covenants and guide us toward the blessings he has promised. I know that these changes reflect the care and love of a Heavenly Father who desires to bless his children. Temple covenants are a powerful source of strength and protection, and I have personally felt the peace that comes from honoring the privilege of wearing the garment. I testify that as we keep our covenants, we will draw closer to Christ, feel his guidance, and receive his promised blessings. I am grateful for the inspired leadership of the First Presidency, and know that these adjustments are made with divine purpose. May we each remain faithful to the sacred covenants we have made and find joy in the Savior's love and mercy.
There are three major things I think will never change about the temple garment, and spoiler, white fabric is actually not one of them. This is not the first time the Latter-day Saint temple garment has been adjusted, and it almost certainly will not be the last. As the church has become increasingly global and as societies change, the church is constantly looking for ways to accommodate a variety of needs while still holding true to the core of our temple covenants. When it comes to the temple garment, from what I've been able to study, could be wrong, this is just my sense, but there are three major anchors to what make the garment, what makes it sacred. The first is that it is authorized by priesthood authority. Clothing is just fabric until it is ceremonially authorized in the initiatory ceremony. The second big thing is the marks. There are sacred symbols that are marked onto different areas of the garment to serve as a reminder of the covenants that we make in the temple. Each mark holds a different symbolic meaning that's explained in the temple, and they're connected to the temple veil, which the Epistle to the Hebrews tells us is a symbol for Christ. Marks have been on the garment since they were introduced in the 1840s, and they are liturgically quite significant, so I don't see them fundamentally changing. The final key to the garment is that it is to be a covering, a shield, and a protection. In multiple ways, the garment symbolizes taking upon us and wearing Jesus Christ. The garment's connected to the temple veil, which is a symbol for Christ, and it's also a reference to the coats of animal skins Adam and Eve wore, the sacrificed animal being a symbol for the atonement of Jesus Christ covering their sins. So there needs to be a significant covering aspect to the garment to function in that symbolic role. Now, most people think that garments need to be white, and this is actually both true and false. Garments have been white since they were introduced, and Joseph Smith and subsequent prophets have indicated that it's an important part of the symbolism. It represents purity, light, glory, and it has connection to ancient priestly undergarments. But the church has made accommodations for military personnel who are required to wear certain colored underclothing, so the church issues special garments for this exception. So as the church continues to make adaptations for a variety of needs, the temple garment will always be a sacred reminder of our covenants when we wear it as instructed in the temple. And you can learn more about the temple garment at the Church of Jesus Christ website.
Actually, I have more thoughts on the LDS garment change. I woke up with a rage down in my belly about it, about the absolute futility that this change now validates, the realization of how carelessly absurd it all is. Attribute it to whatever you like, but it is emblematic of the rotten fruitlessness of these senseless, painful, and arbitrary rules. How can something seriously dumb engender so much rage? Do you know, can you possibly know, unless you've lived it like so many of us LDS women, how many tedious minutes, hours, years of our lives were impacted by the cut of cheap, shitty fabric that we believe was a symbol of our commitment to God? Garments manufactured in factories by underpaid workers dictated not just by faith, but by a system that never considered the toll on our bodies, our time, and our well-being. We spent how much time focused on the narrative of shoulder. Dear God, what time you must have to waste. Why would we believe that these things mattered or came from God in the first place? Because our culture was obsessed with it. The garment design got in between mothers and daughters, between sisters and friends. It entered the marriages of every single devout couple and sent them directives and messages about how to view one another, their relationships and commitments, and themselves. And just like that, the unchanging rule of the sanctity of our skin is cut away with new garment updates. What a thing! Such a stupid, hollow thing where many of our faithful will argue that it's small and insignificant and continuing revelation, and whatever arsenal they will continue to expend on something that is both so tedious and full of tremendous magnitude. And the rest of us will react with equal rage and energy and worship the emptiness that was offered up as life-giving doctrine. That's the encapsulation of the bankrupt theology my generation inherited from old men in downtown Salt Lake City. Dudes whose best crack at God was a laborious amount of effort expressed in sermons, pamphlets, and endless activities and performances of the dangers of women's shoulder. All because they clearly lacked the skills, the will, and creativity to come up with theology that actually propelled us towards being better people, instead of turning our shame internally at ourselves. So much time wasted trying to find clothes that covered my shoulders. So much twisting of my brain to make these covenants reflect in the public performance of fashion. So much signaling to others to stay in line. So much shame. While I feel a sense of relief knowing that future generations won't have to endure this, and I'm glad for the change, that doesn't mean I'm at peace with how it was handled. It was a weird and, frankly, creepy rule, one that poisoned our men with reinforcements and bad ideas about the female body. It's one that allowed women to literally measure someone's worth by the length of their clothing. And just like that, all the damage, weirdness, and unmeasurable, futile, stupid suffering will be swept away. Here's what this change actually tells us. Mormonism, despite all of its grand promises, is a tribute to the mediocrity of old men. Yeah, good for future women. Truly, truly. No one should endure that. But those of us who wore out our truly terrible collective sexual dysfunction on our backs, we're never getting that back unless we claim it. And even then, to see how absolutely pointless this is the exact reason I will never stop having my rage aimed to match the tediousness of the most hollow, insignificant nonsense that we grew up thinking God cared about. God is so big, they told us, and then they showed us how small he was. And then they trimmed him down even further, once again, on our shoulder line.
So this has to do with Sydney, Australia, right? So Sunday, in a certain stake there, the, how do you say it, Montdale stake, all the residents of the stake wake up and there's this email and it's from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's from their stake president. So of course you're going to read this email. It's coming out on Sunday morning and it says Sydney, Australia, Mondale stake pilot program informed consent. Well, that sounds interesting. Everybody wants to be part of a pilot program, right?
Informed consent? Really?
Yeah, that's what it said. Informed consent. I know that should be your first tip off. There might be something
That's the first red flag. This is
askew,
not really from the church.
But nobody caught it. It says, dear brothers and sisters, I have some wonderful news. Your stake has been chosen to try a new approach to learning about the gospel. As you know, our leaders are trying to be more transparent with some of the messiness in our history. No doubt you have also all started to notice this with the release of the gospel topic essays 10 years ago, the videos of President Nelson showing us how Joseph translated the Book of Mormon with his face in a white stovepipe hat and seer stone. The pilot program will include two different objectives. The first is that our beloved missionaries will ensure that all the converts are fully informed before they commit to baptism, and there is no more milk before meat. The second is for all the members to go through a short lesson to make sure that they are also fully informed. So the letter goes on for another 5 pages, very thorough. Issues with church history, not getting your own planet, anachronisms, changes to the Book of Mormon, will you be a God, links and everything. And this is from the stake, a pilot program where the members can actually learn and are encouraged to learn about the history. Face it full on, right? Well, that's Sunday. The members are reading it. This is kind of interesting. What happens Monday morning? Oh my goodness, very quickly. Another letter from the Church of Jesus Christ, right? It says, Dear Mortdale Stake family, it has been brought to my attention that a number of our members in the stake have received a deceptive email disguised as an official church program.
Where was Jonathan Streeter when this happened?
This is what I'm saying. We've seen this play over and over, but it has a twist at the end. The subject of the email states, Sydney, Australia, Mortdale Stake Pilot Program. At this stage, it's unclear as to how many members have received this email. Please note that the email is not from the church, so please disregard and delete it, right? They're desperately trying to do some damage control here. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact a member of the Mortdale Stake. So
disregard it and delete it.
Delete
if you
it.
printed it off, take it out in the backyard and burn it.
Nope, don't look at it, don't read it, don't do anything. So as we're following along this person posting about this on social media, we're like, oh, well, that's funny. The person sent the email and the stake shut it down. But then probably one of the more brilliant moves that I have ever seen, I have to tip my hat to the poster here. The person who sent the original email, pretending that there's a pilot program, sent this. Very same email, but a big blue update. Update. Please note, a local leader mistakenly interpreted this email as a scam. This is a genuine request for all members of the Sydney, Australia Mortdale Stake to become better informed about our history. Can you believe that? And he even said a local leader, right? No names. So basically, if you understand what I'm saying, is the original poster then posted again and said, oh, no, it's real. I don't know what's going to happen next. What would you do if you were in the stake there? Because now nobody knows what's happening.
I think the next Sunday, I would make sure that there was everybody met together, all the men and all the women, they all meet in the chapel, and the real stake leaders get up there in pure AI glory, and they tell them face to face that this is not from them. Of course, it's just hysterical to me because it puts the church in the position of saying, we don't want the truth to be told to the members about us. And here's somebody telling the truth about us. Now, the only thing that's not true about it, I haven't read the whole thing, but from what you've said, it sounds pretty legitimate. The issues they're raising, we've gone over these.
And mostly all from the church website. That's what's ironic, is that everyone can use their own information.
No, they've got a problem. This is the problem the church has, is trying to keep all the information hidden in the internet age.
I just thought it was brilliant. Bill, any thoughts on that?
If my internet is good at the moment, what an upmanship move on the back end to go like, well, actually, it's the other guy who doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm the one.
That's what I mean.
It's the Spider-Man, right? Pointing at each other.
This is Spider-Man. Somebody, I saw you put it up, said legend. And that's it. Exactly. This person is just brilliant. I'm still laughing at this. So we'll have to see what happens next, because honestly, now there has to be some kind of rebuttal to that. I feel sorry for these stake members. They're just like, wait, what is what? Up is down. What is real? And then maybe they'll just go, you know what? I'm going to read the document. What is it? I don't know. We'll see. We'll keep you informed though, for sure.
Nothing makes a person want to read a document more than somebody in authority saying, don't read that document.
Yep. That's exactly right. It's kind of like when you're a youth and you go to a fireside on morality and they say, no necking and petting. And the next thing you do is you're like, what's that? Do you know what that is? I don't know. Everybody's talking about it, right? Whatever they tell you not to do or not to learn, you got to figure out what that's all about. So
I know I was a lot closer in age to the generation that knew what the hell that meant, the necking and the petting. But even in the late 70s, we're all looking at each other and saying, what does that mean?
I don't know what they still use that.
Is that kissing on the neck? Is that necking? And what is the petting thing? Is that like stroking your hair?
Yeah. Or is it your cat? I don't know. No, I actually saw that question posed on Faithful social media about a month ago. So people are still asking, meaning people are still using it. So I don't know how we went to that topic. Oh, that's right. I segued it, but I think we're done.
According to a new lawsuit, an Elk Grove, California Mormon bishop allegedly SA'd a 16-year-old in the Salt Lake Temple, the Oakland Temple, and the bishop's office in 2004 to 2005. The plaintiff said he told 2 LDS church leaders about the SA, but neither told police. Details at Floodlit.
Heaven's Helpline. The Secret Lives of Mormon Bishops, Lawyers, and Abusers. A podcast investigation into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS, reveals how credible reports of child sexual abuse and domestic violence vanish into a system of church leaders, lawyers, and secret courts. For journalist Murray Jones, it all began with some simple questions about how the LDS Church got so rich, and why it keeps on building vast, expensive temples. Heaven's Helpline is available at iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. The series was made with the support of NZ On Air. For more on this series, go to nzherald.co.nz/Heaven's Helpline.
There is a lawsuit against the church and individuals in St. Louis, and it is accusing not only a bishop, but other church leadership of facilitating this bishop's predations, is the word that they use, against this young woman who was 16 at the time. Really a fabulously terrible situation.
The girl, identified only as AL, was actually abused by Larry Deutsch. I want to say douche for the purposes of this story, but I probably shouldn't.
I think it's Deutsch.
Who held roles in the Mormon Church, including serving as a bishop. Deutsch is currently serving a 12-year sentence in federal prison stemming from crimes that he committed against AL. She's represented in the civil suit and says the LDS Church exercises a unique level of control over both its clergy and its members, unparalleled by other religions, says the attorney. In this case, they exercise that control by counseling both AL's parents and AL regarding Deutsch's behavior. A spokesman for the church did not respond to a message seeking comment.
What's terrible about this is they're not only accusing this bishop who did some horrendous things, and even after the AL moves with her family, moves away, he maintains contact with her and still continues to do terrible things with her. But it's accusing another member of the church, another bishop, of knowing about it and actually helping the prior bishop.
So
it is terrible. I know you've said it before, and I'll repeat it again. Talk to your children's friends. Keep your eyes and ears open. Terrible things don't happen that often, but they do happen. And if we can save one person from having to deal with something like this, this is horrendous.
Well, and there are some signs in this. For instance, he is on the phone with her, and I don't know if that means text messages or telephone calls with her after moving.
It sounds like both.
For hours.
Yes.
A day.
To the point that her parents take her phone away from her because of the time she's spending with her ex-bishop,
who is 35 years older than her. So I just want to speak this out. I just want to speak this out loud. There is not a circumstance that I can think that a minor-aged person should be speaking to anyone, adult-aged person, for hours a day.
Agreed.
Even maybe to the extent of family. Not that there's the predations there with family, but I think that there's just like, oh, but nope. Oh, but I just don't think so. Now, maybe there are circumstances where I could see minor-aged person has a mentor and there's a group of people, right? You're a teenage kid with a group of people are going after school and being mentored for DECA, for a decathlon, for whatever the thing is, right?
Whatever.
Yes, okay, I get that. Yeah. And then maybe the message is, hey, make sure you're ready for this tomorrow, but it is inappropriate, first of all, just to have the one-on-one communication. I have not rejected, but youth make me uncomfortable because I just don't want to ever have any sort of shade. All ages of youth, young kids especially, but I just don't ever want anyone to be like, hey, you. So whenever I have communicated with a youth, it's like mom is on the text, dad is on the text, the kid is on the text, and maybe I'm not able to communicate with them just one-on-one. Or maybe they tell me something that I need to know or whatever. Not worth it. Mom's on the text, dad's on the text, or another leader's on the text. You never, ever, ever. Hard rule, one-on-one. Even if you're like a coach. Hey, team, here is a group text. Here's a group app where everyone gets this message. Part of this is also that explicit photos were exchanged. And I just...
Explicit photos, and they even say they have texts between the two adults, these two men, that confirm that they knew about what was going on. And then they've actually included a third person in the lawsuit that was a counselor employed by church counseling who evidently was made aware. And they're accusing them, of course, these are all accusations, accusing them of not reporting in a state where it was required to legally report.
So if it's true, if it's true, they should win the lawsuit because we messed up.
Please, yes.
Yep.
That's what truth and transparency is.
Let's go get some toys.
As a mother of 5 girls and the wife of her ward's bishop, Tatiana Pena has no doubt how her faith will impact her vote.
I think the fact that Donald Trump really understands the importance of the nuclear family, and a lot of his policies are to help strengthen the nuclear family. I think that's a big thing for me.
Tatiana is one of more than 400,000 Arizona members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The fast-growing Christian denomination counts nearly 7 million American members, nicknamed Mormons, largely concentrated in western states. In 2007, then Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney offered many Americans their first introduction to his faith.
I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and the Savior of mankind.
Latter-day Saints now far better known in pop culture, thanks to shows like The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Did you ever say that Jen is too Mormon?
The battleground states of Arizona and Nevada each contain large Latter-day Saints populations and have each received canvassing delegations from the Utah GOP, the state where the church is based and where its conservative lean has helped keep the state deep Republican red. But the Trump era has created cracks in the church's political foundations. LDS member Terry Sharp voted for Trump in 2016, but soon found she could no longer defend his conduct.
I think Trump's a character, but I don't think he has any character.
Jane Anderson says she could never square her church's teachings with the character of a man whose policies she would otherwise support.
Our church leaders have said when we evaluate candidates, they listed 3 qualities: integrity, compassion, and service to others. I just don't see that with Trump.
In 2020, Sharp and Anderson became part of the 18% of LDS voters in Arizona who backed Joe Biden, according to exit polls, contributing critical votes to his razor-thin 11,000 vote margin there. Their votes and those of other Latter-day Saints, particularly women, could be pivotal yet again. Trump making this direct appeal on Sunday.
We want our peace. We want our wives' and children's futures. We want our freedom to worship. These are staples for the Latter-day Saints.
The Harris campaign pushing back, running this ad featuring Mesa, Arizona's Republican and Latter-day Saint mayor.
I'm a lifelong Republican, but I've always put country over party.
Harris's campaign hoping to build a permission structure for conservative Latter-day Saints to vote Democrat, perhaps for the first time.
Is it hard to come out and say, I'm voting for Kamala Harris in this community? Is it?
It is. I frankly keep it to myself and a few close friends.
I have some news for you. More people are going to know.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm really proud to stand up for Kamala. I think that her integrity is tremendous.
But for Anderson, she and her church are still just as conservative, her principles the same.
Can you square your conservative principles with a vote for Kamala Harris?
So there is one conservative principle that I hold very dearly that is going to push me towards Harris. That is the rule of law and the peaceful transfer of power.
In fact, all 3 women say they will oppose the state's ballot measure enshrining abortion rights, with Pena, the Trump supporter, arguing that Harris's record on abortion issues disqualifies her with church members.
The first commandment that God gave to Adam and Eve in the garden was to multiply and replenish the earth. Everything that Kamala Harris and her campaign has been focused on is abortion.
A confluence of factors dividing a church that weighs conservatism with character, alongside family and faith, and whose members may find their choices this November wanting.
Trust me, I wish there was another option. I wish Nikki Haley was on the ballot. But I have Trump, and he's not an option based on my principles.
And Garrett Haig joins us now. He's in Wisconsin at the Harris rally. Garrett, what other issues may be giving LDS members pause when it comes to voting for Trump?
Probably the biggest one of the specific issues is immigration, and not just sort of how the border is handled, but how Donald Trump talks about immigrants and refugees. This is a church where mission trips are expected, where work with refugees are common, and a church that was persecuted inside this country. Mormon voters will tell you they know what it's like sort of organizationally to be treated like an outsider, and a lot of times they just don't like the way that Trump frames the plight of immigrants and refugees. And Tom, we also talked about Mitt Romney in this piece. I'll just flag that he is someone who's obviously not going to vote for Trump. He voted twice for his conviction in Senate impeachment trials, but he's also said he's not voting for Harris. Those sort of lost conservatives without a political home, I think, are a big part of this race overall, and especially in the Mormon community.
Yeah, good point. Garrett, thank you very much.
In church news today, this Monday, October 21st, Elder Neil L. Anderson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles dedicated the Salvador, Brazil temple on Sunday. This marks the 11th house of the Lord dedicated in Brazil, with another 12 either announced or under construction. This is also the 199th temple dedicated worldwide in this dispensation. Elder Anderson said this is a place where so many wonderful people have the Savior, Salvador, written in their hearts. President Jeffrey R. Holland and Elder Ulysses Suarez of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles bore witness of the Lord Jesus Christ in a meeting with local leaders from 6 stakes in Saratoga Springs, Utah on Saturday. President Holland said every teacher and leader in the church needs to bear their testimony often, pray often, and be in the scriptures with their class or quorum or congregation. Learn more about these and other stories from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the church.
In church news today, this Tuesday, October 22nd, during October General Conference, President Russell M. Nelson, his counselors in the First Presidency, and members of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles extended invitations and offered counsel. Those invitations included to prepare for the second coming of Jesus Christ, avoid contention, teach true doctrine, and overcome pride. A Latter-day Saint woman donated her kidney to a man she met while hiking the Y in Provo, Utah. Chrissy Miller and Schiller Joseph consider their story both a modern-day miracle and evidence of Jesus Christ's love. This week's Come Follow Me study guide covers 3 Nephi 27 to 4 Nephi, which includes Jesus Christ's commandment to call the church in his name. See what church leaders have said about these chapters in the Book of Mormon. Learn more about these and other stories from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at thechurchnews.com or on the Church News app. In church news today, this Wednesday, October 23rd, in an October Liahona article, President Russell M. Nelson outlined principles of unity found in 4 Nephi. The principles give a pattern for unity in the Savior. 4 Nephi is part of this week's Come Follow Me study. Through a series of miracles, adopted Ethiopian twins, Jesse and Josh Williams, reunited with their birth family after their full-time missions in Maryland and Ethiopia. They took their parents with them to meet their recently discovered relatives in Ethiopia. The church's global initiative for women and children has reached Indonesia with child nutrition efforts in 3 cities. Pregnant mothers and young children were screened for malnutrition and given tools to improve their health. Learn more about these and other stories from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at thechurchnews.com or on the Church News app. In church news today, this Thursday, October 24th, Elder Clark G. Gilbert, the Church Commissioner of Education, said one of the things that has most impressed him about this year's undefeated BYU football team is their humility and desire to always improve. He said the team must always reflect the mission of BYU and the church. Elder Jord Klebigat, a General Authority 70, gave this week's BYU devotional. He taught that the atonement of Jesus Christ can make one confident to stand before God both today and at the day of judgment. The San Jose, California stake participated in a service fair called Making a Difference Together. 1 week later, 400 volunteers came together for a Just Serve project making wigs for children with cancer. Learn more about these and other stories from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the Church News.
on the verge of the 2024 elections, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are ramping up their campaigns in Arizona and Nevada. Beyond being considered swing states, the two have something else in common: Latter-day Saint voters. About 5% to 10% of Arizonans and Nevadans belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, among the highest percentages in the country outside of Utah and Idaho. For decades, a steep majority of Latter-day Saints, often called Mormons, were regarded as reliable Republican voters, but the Trump era has tested that alliance. Good job, Mormons. Especially when it comes to many of his backers' support for Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is often described as the belief that American identity and Christianity are deeply intertwined, and therefore the U.S. government should promote Christian-based values using questions such as whether being Christian is an important part of being truly American. A Public Religion Research Institute poll in 2024 found that about 4 in 10 Latter-day Saints nationwide are at least sympathetic to Christian nationalist ideas, if not clear adherents. This was the third highest rate among religious groups behind white evangelicals and Hispanic Protestants. Yet the report also found a seeming contradiction. Utah, home to the church's headquarters, is the only red state in which support for Christian nationalism falls below the national average. Now, is this because the percentage of Mormons in Utah is going down? Or is it what this writer is about to say? Let's read on. As a scholar of Mormonism and nationalism, I believe the church's history and beliefs explain why so many members wrestle with Christian nationalist ideas, and that this complexity illustrates the difficulty of defining Christian nationalism in the first place. America is sacred in Latter-day Saint doctrine, both the land itself and its constitutional structures. But as a minority that has often faced discrimination from other Christians, the church displays profound skepticism about combining religion and state. Bad experiences tested Latter-day Saints' faith in the U.S. government, particularly its failure to intervene as members were forced out of Missouri and Illinois. Nevertheless, church doctrine emphasizes duty to one's country. One of the church's 13 articles of faith explains that we believe in being subject to kings, presidents, rulers, and magistrates, in obeying, honoring, and sustaining the law. Latter-day Saints have a unique responsibility to uphold and defend the United States Constitution and principles of constitutionalism, as Dallin H. Oakes, a member of the church's highest governing body, said in 2021. I would argue that beliefs in the country's divine purpose and potential, and the close relationship between faith and patriotism, may illuminate Latter-day Saint sympathy for Christian nationalist ideas. Yet the church's previously fraught relations with the federal government and with wider American culture help explain why a majority of Latter-day Saints remain skeptical of Christian nationalism. For much of the 19th and 20th centuries, hostility against the church was so high and widespread that if the U.S. had declared itself a Christian nation, Latter-day Saints would likely have been excluded, and around 1/3 of Americans still do not consider them Christian. According to a 2023 Pew survey, only 15% of Americans say they have a favorable impression of Latter-day Saints, while 25% report unfavorable views. Latter-day Saint leaders believe they have a right to exert moral influence on public policy, but the church's awareness of its own precarious position in U.S. culture has made it wary of politics that put some people's religious freedom above others. And this could be a huge reason why the church is trying to appear more mainstream Christian. From going on Google Maps and changing all of their little Statue of Moroni icons to cross icons, to the fact that they now have an entire YouTube channel dedicated to what I would refer to as Christian rock, something that was absolutely frowned upon when I was growing up in the church. It's also why they don't want people calling them Mormon. They want them calling them the Church of Jesus Christ, so people will start to associate them with other Christians. The article goes on. This wariness has also shaped Latter-day Saint culture's inclination to avoid extremes. After decades of being marginalized for practices considered radical, i.e. polygamy and polyandry, the modern church and its adherents have walked a delicate tightrope. And for many, Christian nationalism and the candidate many adherents put their hope in, Donald Trump, seem a step too far. Over the past half-century, Latter-day Saints tended to align politically and culturally with conservative Catholics and evangelicals. On balance, the church remains highly conservative on social issues, especially gender and sexuality, and 70% of its American members lean Republican. However, more younger Latter-day Saints have much more progressive views, and even the leadership has parted ways with the GOP on some issues, such as strict immigration proposals. While the church opposes elective abortion, it allows for several exceptions. During the 2016 election, election, only about half of the church's members voted for Trump. 15% voted for Evan McMullen, a Latter-day Saint who positioned himself as a moderate choice between Trump and Hillary Clinton. In 2020, Trump garnered about 7 in 10 Latter-day Saint votes. In June of 2023, church leaders issued a statement against straight-ticket voting, saying voting based on tradition without careful study of candidates and their positions on important issues is a threat to democracy. Ever since the Puritans, many people in what became the United States have believed God has a special plan for their society, part of the same current that drives Christian nationalism today. Latter-day Saints, however, have a specific version of that plan. According to the church's teachings and scriptures, the country's establishment was a necessary step toward restoring the only true and living church, their own, and that church is a global one, not just American. More than half of all Latter-day Saints today live outside the United States. Ultimately, Latter-day Saint teachings consider America's story part of a greater goal, ushering in the second coming of Jesus Christ. That's right, folks. The reason that Columbus was sent to colonize the Americas is because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints needed to be established. As the church's name suggests, Latter-day Saints believe that they are living in the last days just before the millennial reign of Jesus, a kingdom where national and political distinctions melt away. This is true. The prophet Russell Nelson even made a comment in the last General Conference saying that the second coming was well on its way. But as with all other churches, its members live in the current day, where political, cultural, and societal realities shape how they interact with the world around them and how they vote.
We're marching door to door, because God loves Mormons and he wants some more.
All right, back in 2011, Book of Mormon opened on Broadway and nabbed 9 Tony Awards. The musical continues to shock and enchant audiences all around.
Yeah, soon the show will hit 5,000 performances. And 2 actors who have been around for quite a few of those shows are Cody Jamison Strand and Kevin Clay. And they are here to celebrate with us, and they've been cracking us up since they walked in the door. You guys are the best. I just love your energy. It's awesome.
Great sweater.
Thank you. Thank you. What authority.
Oh my gosh. But he's not prickly. He's a good one.
Hey.
Listen, almost 5,000 shows. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you guys have been in the show since when?
2012.
2015.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
I was going to say, we were trying to do rough calculations at work. This was a couple weeks ago now of like how many shows we think, because, you know, like sick days or vacations or whatever. But I'm like, I'm safely over 2,500 shows. You're probably more in the
45 maybe.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Do you get bored of it? Tired of it?
It's really hard to get bored of the show because it's very funny.
Yes.
And 2, like, I don't know if you've seen the show, but the characters that we play, like specifically me.
Your character
is Elder Cunningham. I play Elder Cunningham, and it's very difficult to get bored of it because the character's chaos.
Yeah.
So you kind of,
and it helps that it's the 2 of us as well. I mean, we
hate each other.
We have a terrible time, and we dislike each other, and so
in real life.
Yeah.
And you play again.
I'm Elder Price.
Elder Price. Okay.
So it's not. I mean, we're completely opposite characters on stage, which is great. Well, and it's funny that like we are such good friends in real life as well, and so we've been doing this for a long time with them.
It is hilarious. I mean, the show is there's no surprise why it won 9 Tony Awards. But when you look at Broadway overall, like things open and close all the time. Nothing has staying power, but this has staying power.
Yeah.
And so, what do you attribute it to? Just the hilarity of it all?
I mean, it's the power of the writing. One, it's so strong. It's so well put together. Matt and Trey and Bobby really kind of created magic. Obviously, 5,000 shows worth of magic. And like the staying power of the jokes. Like we even after the shutdown, we had some editing when we came back. But even then, like the jokes are still solid. Like it's funny stuff. Like Lord of the Rings or Star Trek. Like even those that are like references. Like there's such huge, major milestones of culture that
and then it goes beyond the comedy as well. Like I always love talking about the show because of it still is a message show. It's a message piece as opposed to just you know, it's not just farce, it's not just comedy. It, you know, it has a really strong message about faith and community and hope, and so I think people really resonate with that, especially once the comedy, you know, sort of knocks you back a little bit.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then it just sets you up to like embrace hopefully this message that our show gives out, and that's special.
Was it supposed to be a film?
Initially, at least
right?
They
did
chatted
talk
with
about
us.
that. Yeah.
Because when we were reopening the show and doing a bit of the author's process, and then we were re-rehearsing, it was funny to hear some insights right from Trey and Matt for the first time, being like, when we were writing this number for the first time, we imagined, they'd be, on film, they'd be walking through the village and we'd reference somebody and then we'd never see them again. But now they're part of the stage for the whole time, so we had to come, and hearing that, I was going, right, of course, from there was their early concepts were probably either TV or movie or something like that. And then, thank goodness it's a show.
Well, yes. And they're the creators of South Park, by the way, for those who may not know. And for those who may not know what Book of Mormon is, I mean, let's just give a little synopsis, a little button-up version of what it is.
It is about two very different Mormon missionaries who are sent on their mission to Uganda and face the harsher realities of the world than they expect to see.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, where it starts. And, it's the beautiful thing about comedy, and specifically this show, and they keep drawing the line in the sand, and then take a running leap over it and draw a new line of like, oh, this is where we're going. And it's like, oh, no, this is where we're going. And then that's, oh, no, that's where we're going. So it's,
The thing about the show, too, is like all the songs are like, they're earworms.
Yeah.
And you just hear them, and we were talking about the hello, the doorbell.
Yeah.
It just triggers for you songs. I mean, do you
when you hear doorbells,
doorbells give me shudders.
Break out into song?
Yeah,
sometimes.
Doorbells give me shudders because it's always like, what's happening? But yeah, the songs are each number is kind of a showstopper. Mm-hmm. And so, it's like, besides like the big dance numbers that happen, and even if you listen to the album, seeing it on stage is a completely different experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Specifically for some of the more involved numbers, you never really quite know what's happening unless you see it.
And on purpose as well. We've, once again, it was really great to get some specific insight from Bobby Lopez, who wrote the music, and the guys that each song, some to varying degrees, are all modeled after in their brains. They're like, when we wrote this, we had this musical theater song in mind that then we wanted to play and grow from. And so it has that purposeful, almost standard musical theater vibe.
No, like I was saying, they're earworms. I know this show is not for children. I have very young
children. Come! And it's always alarming.
Well, this is what happens when children listen to the soundtrack. These are my kids. They love the soundtrack of Book of Mormon and have been begging for years. This is a few years ago, but they've been begging for years to come see the show because the music is so infectious.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Bobby has a gift.
Yes.
Because, I mean, he wrote Frozen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he writes music that, like, it gets stuck in your head, and it will stay there for years, literal.
And I told him this as well, because he has brought his daughter now a few times. She's older, and but I told him when I was first coming up to the city, I used to take trips with my best friend and our moms, and at the time, Avenue Q was a musical he wrote was on, and so our moms wanted to go see something else, and we knew that Avenue Q was. A little bit more for adults, but we were probably 13. We were like, oh, it's this little puppet show. You guys go see Drowsy Chaperone. We're just going to go see this puppet show. And they said, yeah, sure. Right. And it changed my life. So at home, I'm listening to Avenue Q at home, and I know where, all the moments I have to like mute.
Right, so that they don't know.
And then turn it back up. So I really do secretly hope that there are kids listening to our soundtrack out there a little bit, being a little sneaky.
Mom of the year right here.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a privilege.
Yeah.
When it comes to nicknames of the church, such as LDS Church, the Mormon Church, to remove the Lord's name from the Lord's church is a major victory for Satan.
Satan.